recording. Just go ahead and just say your name for me and spell it.
I am Congressman Hank Johnson. I represent Georgia's 4th Congressional District, HankJohnson.
And so, Congressman Johnson, you have been in Congress for more than 7 terms. You have seen a lot over the years, but when you look at all the things you've seen, good and bad, what was January 6th to you? How do you describe this day on the Hill?
Hello. Okay, so something froze up.
Oh, okay, I'll do that. I'll do that again. I'm sorry. I was saying after you've been in Congress for so many years, you've been in Congress for more than 7 terms. I know you've seen it all, good and bad. But when you look at all the days you spent on the Hill, what was January 6th to you?
January 6th is a day that will live in infamy, like 9/11 and like December 7th when Pearl Harbor was attacked. It's a day that is stained with the thumbprint of Donald Trump and his minions. The President of the United States attempted to hurt the legislative branch of government. He sent people to do violence at the Capitol, and they took over the Capitol, and it was it's something that I never expected to see happen.
Tell me what you did see happening. What did you see?
Well, I saw that members of Congress were traumatized by an attack on our chamber. We were all seated in the chamber. I was on the 3rd floor in the gallery because members of Congress were socially distanced. And so all of us can't convene on the House floor. And so I was one of those who were in the gallery, and I observed a commotion starting to take place. It was a slow motion commotion during what had been a solemn ceremony. But with the commotion starting to intensify, I at some point determined that something was wrong, and something was badly wrong. And at that point, I was starting to get text messages saying that people are trying to get into the Capitol. Rioters are trying to get into the Capitol. And then I got a text message that rioters are in Statuary Hall, which is only steps away from the House chamber. And it was shortly after that that the speaker was whisked off the podium. She didn't even have time to grab her cell phone off of the podium, but she was whisked away to safety, and others on the 1st floor started being whisked to safety also, leaving us on the balcony wondering what was going to happen. Meanwhile, a lot of banging was going on the doors of the chamber. People were trying to get in. Sergeant at Arms members and members of the Capitol Hill Police were inside the chamber with their guns drawn. We were in the gallery. There were some plainclothes officers up there with us, and they directed us to put on to reach under our seat and put on your gas mask, and well, not put it on, but just have it ready to put on. And so we were going through that process of trying to open the box to get the package out that contained the breathing apparatus, to actually find a way to tear into that piece of paper, into that pouch, to get the apparatus out of it. It was taking us some time to get that done. And meanwhile, things were escalating. And it was a harrowing experience. At some point, they told us, okay, we're going to exit, but we're going to have to make our way to the other side of the gallery. And that required us to kind of walk through some very narrow paths between the seats and to have to dip under railings and to make our way was kind of like a obstacle course, because everyone had taken out their package and thrown the packaging on the floor. So you're trying to navigate through that, not wanting to slip and fall, and all of the time trying to be hasty, and make sure that everyone was complying with the demands of the officers that we move. And finally, we got situated over on the other side, and but it was uncertain as to which door we should exit out of. And so the officers were yelling at each other, trying to see who had a key for what door, whether or not it was behind the door was safe to go out. And then all of a sudden, somebody said, "Get down, get down." And so we got down, and then we heard a gunshot. And then some members started really having a tough time, hyperventilating, and some would just say freaking out, but not to the point where anyone was out of control. But it was a serious moment to hear that gunshot go off.
Well, tell me, did you think that you would make it out alive? You heard a gunshot. You're on the House floor doing the business of the country, thinking you're going to certify a vote. You heard rioters are coming in, and then you hear a gunshot. You're on the floor. Did you ever think, I might not make it out of this?
I wasn't thinking that way. I was always figuring or assuming that we were going to make it out of there. I didn't think that it was my final moment, but I realized that it could be. But I guess I just didn't want to let myself go into a fear mode. And so I did not dwell on that possibility. But for a second, I understood that this is a very serious situation. It's life-threatening. But then my attention moved towards, what's happening right now in this moment, and what do we need to do in order to get out of here and get to some safety.
I do want to ask you, when it comes to accountability and blame, who do you blame for this?
Well, I think there was some obvious failures at the top of the Capitol Hill Police Department and also the Sergeant at Arms offices. It should have been seen that danger was coming forward. There was adequate time to take precautions to warn us and to get us out of danger before the danger was right there at our door. It's like being in your bedroom at home and you think you have armed security at the front door, but before you know it, someone's knocking on your bedroom door. And the only thing standing between a bad person and you behind that door is a lock. And people are pounding on that door trying to get in. So, that's not a situation that we should have been left in. And so it seems to me that there may have been some collusion at the highest levels of the Capitol Hill Police Department, along with officials in the Department of Defense, and also, any intelligence apparatus that was responsible for being able to relay what to expect in Washington, D.C. on September 6th. Perhaps all of those entities were involved, or perhaps there was information that was ignored by someone. But
you're saying that you're saying that there was collusion between the White House and the police, or who are you saying was colluding?
Yeah, I'm saying that there appears to have been some collusion between the White House and officials inside and outside of the Capitol. The police command structure, people at the highest level, the Sergeant at Arms, people at the highest levels. The people on the ground were put in an untenable situation there with us. They were not equipped for rioters, and neither were the people situated outside of our doors who were on the perimeter of the Capitol. They were not equipped as if they were going to face some Black Lives Matter protesters, for instance. They were equipped for a peaceful protest when they should have known, either they knew or they should have known that it was not going to be a peaceful protest. Donald Trump had incited a mob at his rally at the White House to go over and take the House of Representatives and take the Senate, and be strong when you do it. Don't let them take the steal. Don't let them steal this election, is what he told them. And then others like Rudy Giuliani and Don Jr. and my colleague, Representative Mo Brooks, inciting people to go over there and be violent, engage in combat. And that's exactly what they did. But it took a minute for them to walk all the way from the White House in a mob to the Capitol. And we were sitting there inside the Capitol handling our business as this mob approached. And as the mob breached the security lines and made their way onto the Capitol grounds, we were still unaware of the danger that was coming at us. And finally, they're so close that they're banging on doors, and we are then in a position of trying to escape the danger, which is right there at our door. That kind of security breach should never have happened. Someone is responsible for it, more than one person, on more than one level, in more than one agency. So all of that needs to be investigated, and whoever's responsible needs to be held accountable. And but last but not least, those who incited the rioters are just as responsible for the 5 deaths that occurred as the rioters themselves, including a Capitol Hill police officer lost his life. A police officer of 12 years on the force lost his life. And there's blood on the hands of Donald Trump and his minions.
Those are very strong statements, but it's a very serious situation. And so I wanted to ask you, there are talks now about invoking the 25th Amendment to have President Trump removed from office. What's your stance on that?
Yeah, I support all efforts to prevail upon the vice president to invoke the provisions of the 25th Amendment. Only the vice president can do it. He refused, after having Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer on the line for 20 minutes yesterday, refused to come to the phone and take their call, and hasn't called them back today. So apparently his cowardice has overwhelmed him, and he is not going to do what only he can do, which is to institute and effectuate the 25th Amendment. And so that leaves it up to the House of Representatives now. The only thing we can do is proceed with a second impeachment of this president and look towards the Senate to hold a trial and convict and remove this president before he leaves office, which will come in less than 2 weeks.
I know the articles of impeachment have been drafted, or they're in the process of being drafted, possibly for Monday. Could you bring me up to speed on where that process stands with trying to impeach the president for a second time?
Yeah, 3 of my colleagues are drafting separate articles of impeachment, and I think all 3 they look to file those articles on Monday. Whether or not all 3 of them or just one of them are filed, I don't know, but one of them will at least be in the form of a privileged resolution, which would enable the House to consider the articles of impeachment on the floor immediately.
What are your thoughts on Nancy Pelosi's letter to the president saying that if he doesn't resign immediately, then they will proceed with impeachment?
We must do all that we can. We must do all that we can to let this president know that he's no longer fit for office, and we will no longer sit with him in office without doing something to remove him. He has shown himself to be unfit to serve as our president. This is a president who has been suspended from Twitter, but yet he's got his fingers on the nuclear code of this country, ready to obliterate mankind. A person of his lack of capacity should never be in control of destroying mankind. But unfortunately, we have a madman in office who can do just that.
I will say, in those last couple questions, I know we're getting a little closer to the time limit that we set. Did you think it would ever come to this? And what do you say to the people who have supported the president's rhetoric and dishonesty over the years?
I certainly didn't anticipate that this would happen, but it having happened, and President Trump still being in office and his followers still clinging to support him, lets me understand where our future is, what we're headed for our future. And it means we are in a very dangerous time where civil unrest can break out into armed conflict. And we all must be on guard against that. And now is the time for all good men and women to stand for the democracy that our forefathers put in place, built, and that we have enjoyed freedom and prosperity under. It's time for us to protect that. And it starts with protecting the rule of law. And the rule of law means that all are accountable. No man is above the law. Everyone is accountable to the law. And so we must hold those who have done wrong accountable, because that deters others from going down that same road. We got a lot of work to do because there's a lot of wrongdoing that has occurred.
Moving forward, President-elect Joe Biden will soon be President Joe Biden, and with the results in Georgia, we will have a Democrat-run Senate. What are you looking forward to having a Democrat president and a majority in the Senate?
Yeah, I think it's exactly what the country needs. The country under Mitch McConnell's leadership in the Senate had been a graveyard for necessary legislation to move the country forward that had already been passed by the House. And Mitch McConnell sat on it because his only objective was to confirm one right-wing judge after another, just about all of them white males. He has stacked the federal bench with Mitch McConnell being his willing companion. And together, they have thrown our judiciary out of balance. Our judiciary is the one that affirms the rights that each one of us have, including equal rights under the law. And so it's good that the Senate will be out of the control of Mitch McConnell and in the hands of the Democrats, with the first African-American vice president elected to serve in the nation's history being the tie-breaking vote. It means we're poised to get some things done for the American people. It means we're able to confront this pandemic and defeat it, put it behind us, restart our economy with good paying jobs, make sure that everyone has the kind of health care that is affordable and efficient and effective. And then we can start working also on the issues of criminal justice reform, racial equality, income inequality, climate change, so many issues that impact the American people right now that need to be addressed by congressional action. So I'm happy that we have two United States senators from the state of Georgia who have righted the ship of the nation, and we're poised to move forward from here.
It sounds like you might have just answered my last question, which is, what big ticket items do you want prioritized? I guess if you can name the top three of the list that you just mentioned, what are some of the top three items you want prioritized?
Well, we've got to defeat the pandemic. get our economy moving forward with good paying jobs, and send our children back to school safely. Those are jobs number one. But I should add, we need to put some money in the pockets of the American people, because this economy has devastated the lives of working men and women and poor people just trying to get by. They have fallen through the safety net. The first order of business is to pass a coronavirus stimulus bill, a COVID-19 response bill, economics. First thing we need to do is pass a bill that helps people's pocketbooks due to the COVID relief. Okay, so I'm through saying that. All right. Is it?
I'm sorry?
Okay.
I was just listening, but I will ask you. I did hear. I heard it, and you mentioned the COVID relief, so that's totally fine. I will ask you. Lastly, what do you say to Georgians about security right now at the Capitol? Do you feel safe? Have things changed? How do you reassure Georgians that the people that they elected to go represent them are going to be able to stay alive while doing it?
Well, when I left Capitol Hill yesterday on the 7th of January, a day after the debacle, the takeover by the rioters at the Capitol, there were hordes of DC National Guards troops that were on Capitol Hill, establishing perimeters and preparing for the January 20th swearing in of President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. So I believe that security will be reimposed, and that it will be hardened so that anyone who tries to breach the security perimeter will not be successful in doing so. I believe that the scheme that was hatched and perpetrated on January 6th is over, and this inauguration is going to move forward. But what happens between now and then, I'm very worried about. And what happens after then, I'm very worried about as well.
If there's nothing else that you want to add, I will stop the recording. I know that we're on a time crunch that I want to respect, but my last question, if you don't, would be, what needs to happen with Donald Trump at this point? And he's got a following that listens to his every word. He's not going to attend the inauguration. If he's not going to attend the inauguration, but he still has such a following, where do you see that going, and what do you want to happen with the president?
Yeah, Donald Trump will leave the national stage, but he and his supporters will continue to believe the spin and the bunk that Donald Trump is spinning to them, and they will continue to be under his control, and it's no telling what he will tell them to do next. So we must all be on guard. And even if Donald Trump is off the scene, there's so many Donald Trump 2 and Donald Trump 3, people who have seen his success and are willing to adopt his strategy and try to take over his movement so that they can gain personal power and prestige and wealth just like he did. So we're in a tough situation with our democracy. Congress must go to work to shore up the areas where constitutional law is deficient insofar as preventing presidential overreach. The laws of this country have to be looked at and modified to prevent what has happened from repeating itself.